Well, welcome back to Down the Slope. As you can hear, Harry has sacked off the hosting duties and he's abandoned us after a weekend in Edinburgh, as those who follow us on Instagram will have seen. We were all together at the weekend. Everyone in good spirits still after a good win for the Hibees on Saturday.
I was mourning the loss of Jake Doyle-Hayes after half an hour, to be honest.
Good. Well, we're all good though, eh?
All good, my man. All good.
Excellent. Right. Well, Hibs kick-started the post-split campaign with 3 vital points against St Mirren on Saturday. Ryan, for me, that was potentially the first half, potentially the best we've played all season.
I would agree with you there. Some of the football that was on display was very nice to watch. Slick passing moves, everyone was quite quick. Off the ball, we were phenomenal. Unfortunately, the second half, that game encapsulated what we've been over the course of the season, up and down, and it was kind of all put into two halves of football.
Yeah. Liam, were you a bit, not to be too negative, but were you a bit disappointed that maybe we weren't more than 2 up at halftime?
Maybe, aye, because I think the chances were there for us. So really, from the point at which we went 2-0 up, so we did create a couple of decent chances, and I think our superiority in the game overall probably was well, the reward of that probably should have been, should have been that we were more than 2 goals in front.
And Greg, so are you sort of with Liam there, or do you go align yourself with Stephen Robinson's way of thinking that it was just 2 mistakes and that was the difference in the game?
You can make mistakes in the game and not be punished for them. He's talking absolute nonsense, to be honest. I mean, the 2 goals that we scored, we were on them. You know, we attacked the ball. We done well. I actually thought we'd done the fundamentals well in the first half. I know everyone loves that. But I actually did think that when Jake Doyle-Hayes went off, we maybe missed that. Thought he was very neat and tidy on the ball. He was offloading it. I was impressed. But second half, maybe could have been more clinical. Nisbet had a good chance, but listen, we'd done enough, and maybe did lose a silly goal, but we'd done enough in the game to deserve the win. Stephen Robinson must be watching a different game to me.
I know I called Greig out for changing his mind on after the St Johnstone game, but coming out of the game, I was very much of that second half was shite. But then when I thought about it, even after St Mirren scored, I don't really remember them having another chance. But I still think we were fairly comfortable. And I remember actually looking over at the clock in the East Stand, and I think it said like 87 minutes or something. I was like, oh, right, that's sort of flown in. Like, I know they had a lot of the ball and stuff, but I never got the sense that another goal for St Mirren was coming.
I think I have that natural warrior kind of mindset when it comes to most things in life, but especially when it comes to Hibs. So I was a wee bit worried, maybe potentially about a ball that was just lumped into the box, dropping it to someone. Just think, because obviously aerially for their goal, we didn't deal with that particularly well. There was a bit of nervousness that something might drop to them, but I agree that they didn't really create a chance. But there's always that thing of sometimes you only need one chance, as the cliche goes, and something might just have broken to them in the box late in the game, and they got something from it. But to be honest, we were comfortable. I mean, it was very much a professional seeing out of the game in my eyes.
Do you think? I'll open this to anyone who wants it. Do you think we've seen over the last 3 games a little bit more defensive solidity than we have maybe throughout the year? So I think obviously the goal that we conceded at the weekend wasn't great, but other than that, we never really got cut open. Their only other chance just came from a mad deflected cross that sort of took the centre backs out of the game. Defended really well in the second half at St Johnstone. Are we impressed with the sort of back 4 currently?
I am. I think the goal on Saturday is disappointing, but as a whole, much better. I think when Will Fish plays with Paul Hanlon, it's a totally different sort of defensive partnership you see. I think as well, I sort of picked up on this, that Egan Riley sometimes goes in the middle of the pitch as well when he's at fullback, which I like. It sort of floods the midfield and gives us more bodies in there. So I think as a defensive unit as a whole, we're much better at the moment. And listen, Will Fish has had an unbelievable turnaround, and it's another goal for him this season, which is always good.
Yeah, Ryan, Will Fish obviously his goal well, but Youan early in the game, real good finish.
Oh, absolutely. And again, I've harped on about this for weeks, but it shows you the importance of doing the right things off the ball, which he does to create the chance for himself. Creates a bit of pressure in the centre half and takes his opportunity very well, because he has to cover a distance before he even gets to shooting range, and he finishes it perfectly in the corner. And we can't ask for more than that. He's been fairly clinical in that situation. He hasn't hesitated.
Yeah, no, it was a really good finish. I think for me with Youan, that's the difference now from 4 or 5 months ago. Like maybe even the game in January Greig at Tynecastle, he was running through. We're like, yeah, he's not going to score. He's probably going to
I think someone behind me said, he's missed. And I was like, there we go. Easy days. Posting in.
It was funny, Graham, that I got the game, but he was the same. It's like, oh, he's not going to score, is he? And then it was like, oh, he got lucky with the finish. But
It's
like,
a great finish.
It's a great finish.
It was more. I think it was more just the like, oh fuck, he's actually scored. Thank God. Like, you know, like the emotions of. But you do have that. I had the same feeling when Nisbet was running through against Aberdeen. It was like they have so much time, but it was a real good finish. Right, let's move into the first question of the day. Now, I'm just going to sort of go through these in order, but I will try and categorize them. So I'm just looking at them. We're going to categorize these as the negative ones, because the first two questions that have come in haven't been great. So Hans has asked, 4 defenders on the bench. Surely one of the young attackers could have been on it, as he obviously doesn't feel confident bringing on McCurdy or Hoppy on, unless it's just to sort of waste time and injury time. Liam, I'm going to come to you with this, because obviously you mentioned with Rocky being back on the bench last week. You know, it's numbers more than anything, but then 4 defenders on the bench. Is there a balance to that?
I think there is. I mean, I'd probably struggle to see the benefit in having 4 defenders on the bench. I mean, even if you're going to switch to a 3-5-2, the most you'd ever really need is 1, maybe 2 defenders to come off the bench. So it feels like they're there for injuries. I do think there's something there for me around. Someone asked a question a couple of weeks ago, is the manager maybe trying to play a bit of a game in terms of his bench and not using subs, etc. And I do think there's maybe, the more the weeks go on, something in that. And on the McCurdy thing, cause I don't know if it's coming as a question, so I'm just going to preempt it anyway.
No.
I do think that the whole kind of saga with McCurdy at the weekend, I can kind of understand it, to be honest. As much as I'm not his biggest fan, I've given him a pretty hard time privately and on this podcast. I do think that if you're seeing Matthew Hoppy come on before you, I think, I'm not saying that McCurdy should be coming on before him, but I can understand why you'd be frustrated about that.
Even as
Hoppy's
not
exactly set the header alight. It's not set the header alight Hoppy at all. And you'd have to question what benefit we're getting from bringing him on, given we've got 4 games left of this time at Hibs.
Yeah, so it has been. Let's just move into that. So it has come in from John McIntosh. I think we've all seen it. The Instagram post that McCurdy put on his story. If you've not seen it, it basically says Chelsea, East Bird, Golf, Hibs, like in Gareth Bale flag style, with a picture of a bench.
Did he storm off down the tunnel as well or something?
Yeah, so I think apparently before the game he's unsurprisingly missed an open goal in the warm-up and someone in the heat in the famous 5, and I think they've not taken too kindly to it, and I don't know, instead of him just pretending he's sorry and he's not taken to it kindly and he's went in a huff as well. That's what I've heard. Didn't see it though. Yeah, listen, it's not the first time we've had this with McCurdy though, Greg, this year. Are you more to the side of Liam, like, or maybe it's good that he's unhappy at not playing, or is it petulant?
I'd rather have a striker there that is unhappy, is pissed off and not playing, than just as happy to turn up every week and piss about, pick up a couple of cones and then sit on the bench for 90 minutes. It plays a little bit petulant, but I don't mind it because he's not playing. Matthew Hoppy's playing in front of him. Matthew Hoppy's dug meat, mate. Like, he's not good enough. He's absolutely dreadful.
Mine is,
and do you know something? I don't really use this a lot, but Matthew Hoppy's not our player, so I'd much rather be looking to get our players on the pitch rather than loan players. But Matthew Hoppy's not good enough for this club.
Unless they're sort of seriously contributing, like the ones that are sort of starting.
Yeah, I mean he's not. I mean, you looked at the breakaway at St Johnstone away; it was like a rabbit in the headlights. Mm-hmm. There's nothing about him. I mean, and look, I get that McCurdy's not really shown anything, but you almost need to back your own players in that. But yeah.
Ryan, has McCurdy earned the right to even be pissed off at not getting game time though?
I don't know if anybody has a divine right to start games or get opportunities based off and basically nothing. He hasn't really done anything for us this season. I understand why he's maybe frustrated about the whole Hoppy thing. However, I do think there is a way to kind of conduct yourself and behave, especially when it comes to social media. It's a goldfish bowl up here with things like that. Like you're never going to get away with it. People will be straight on you, so it just kind of makes you look a little bit silly.
I think
Why do players delete them? Obviously, Dimitri Mitchell done it early in the season, and then he's done it. Like just keep it up. I'm sure people would much rather you just kept it up and didn't try and hide it. And then,
it's attention, I get it. You know what I mean? It's
why
like
hide it?
You know, like if like your ex would post something and then if you've seen it, they'll remove it or whatever. You know what I mean? Like it is literally like school ground shit. But
attention seeking to a degree, isn't it?
Maybe there's alcohol involved. Speaking of someone who's most of the time when he does regrettable things on social media, alcohol tends to be involved. You know, maybe he's had a couple of sherbets after the game and he's thought that's a good idea, and then he's sat down for, I don't know what's on Saturday night telly these days, Ant and Deck Saturday night takeaway maybe, and he's thought to himself, maybe not the best idea.
No, he definitely goes home and watches Chelsea box sets or whatever.
Maybe Chelsea. I do find it interesting because he done it before, didn't he? Before the World Cup, and I think Lee Johnson said they'd spoke to him, and you know, and then there was sort of Johnson had a few snippets saying about how hard he was working, professionalism, and then sort of January time he started a few games I think and got a lot more game time, and then again maybe I think someone asked a question of us last week about his future at Hibs. Maybe he's trying to. Maybe he's just trying to force his way out, you know, and maybe he wants to go back down south, maybe somewhere that he's
maybe. But see, ultimately, to be a man, go and knock on the manager's door. Don't be doing childish things like that. If you're going to be a man about it, like that's the way to conduct yourself. You go and chat the door. You either say I'm unhappy and I want to leave, or I'm unhappy and I want more game time. Like that's the way to resolve it.
Right.
The thing is, for all we've slagged Lee Johnson
about this fucking tangent.
I know, but you can absolutely go and speak to him. Ultimately, as a manager, you can go and speak to him, have a conversation. But yeah, I don't mind the petulance. It's just don't make a habit of it, really. But he's only done it twice, so.
Can I make a wee Harry McCurdy prediction?
Yep.
Harry McCurdy signs for Reading in the summer because of Brian McDermott's connections with Reading, and we offload him at Reading in the summer because they're in League One next season. And let's be honest, he'll probably go down in League One and score a few goals.
Aye.
He won't be here next summer. Next season.
I really don't think so. I don't see it at all. And it's just been a complete mess in it. You know, when you think maybe we all got suckered in stupidly, but like you look at.
At least none of us tweeted saying Ben Kensil's got blood on his hands for no signing them, to be fair.
Why does that sound like a Specky tweet?
No, it wasn't Specky. Well, the person was Specky, but it wasn't your
Specky. Look, I said there was 2 negative questions. The other one, this will be one that folk will be just desperate for us to answer. Herke 1875, what's the point in Jago?
He liked his own funeral, by the way. Some of the tackles he puts in, Jesus, he's fucking weeks late. Joe, I actually noticed a few people up beside me on Saturday getting a bit pissed off.
Yeah, it was the same around me.
I'm hoping that now people can actually understand that he's not good enough. But
I think he'll be the reason I burst a blood vessel this season. Like his use of the ball is appalling. Like the time he takes to get a touch and get it out of his feet and turn, you'd think he had a Zimmer frame in front of him, man. Jesus Christ!
I think for me, just like again, like this is a good coming out of bashing, isn't it? As always.
I don't give a fuck.
He doesn't look to get involved enough for me. Like I know, he's a number 6, he's a holding midfielder, no, he's a football player. And when Hibs have the ball, you should look to be available for your teammates. I actually think he hides when Hibs are on the ball. Like there was times in the second half where he was like holding hands with Will Fish, basically. Like get ahead of him, get out there. Like there's like the fullback's got the ball. You should be that pass. Like he should be there to take the ball off the fullback and then move it along again. And I just don't think he's doing that. Maybe you could caveat with saying the midfield's maybe look the best it's looked all season with him, Doyle, Hayes, and Newell potentially. and we've seen that Doyle, Hayes, Newell, and Campbell doesn't work well together last year, so maybe he is doing a job in there, but as an individual, I don't see it at all. I just don't see it.
Let's move on.
Right, a little bit more positive. Jeff Ashton, with all the results going our way this weekend, how confident or otherwise are we of third or fourth place? Personally, I would now think that fifth or sixth is a failure, even if fifth did get us a trip to Wales or Ireland. Should fourth now be the objective? Well, it was always the objective, but last week we said fifth was the minimum. Are we now looking at fourth, or where are we at with that?
Well, a cliche, but you just need to take every week as it comes, every game as it comes, and you just need to try and win. There's no point worrying about what Hearts are doing. We just need to make up the gap, and maybe left it a little bit too late. Some silly results in there, but we can only do what we can do now. But I think fourth would be very good, but I don't think I can see that.
I think for me, and I'll let you guys come in. I think if we can get to the last game of the season where if you win it, you've got something to play for when you're there. Like, it'd be a bit of a killer to be sort of 4 points adrift going into that last game. If you can go there and win and you get fourth place, and I would be pretty happy if that was our position come 3-4 weeks time when that game is.
Aye, but like essentially a fourth place player, so Tynecastle would be fine by me as well. Be fine by me. It'd be nice to take maybe even a bit of a lead into that, just because of the goal difference. Maybe to be a point ahead would be handy for us. Just so that we don't need to go and get all 3 points. But I don't think, if I'm being honest, I think that's the best we can hope for, really. Is to go in there with fourth place playoff. I wasn't talk about them too much, but I was really impressed with Hearts for 45 minutes yesterday. Thought they were really good. Probably the best I've seen anyone outside Old Firm, maybe other than St Mirren, play against Celtic this season. So I think they've improved from that game against us where they were fucking woeful. So no way was up for them, but they have improved.
For yourself, Ryan, it's maybe don't mention fourth. I want you to tell me if we can overcome 6 points on Aberdeen, maybe if we were to go and win on Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, technically on paper, we're going to play the top 4 teams in the country in the next 4 games. Not won at Pittodrie for a long time. So that's the next test. It's going to be a big one. And if we win on Saturday, it gives us a fantastic opportunity to then kind of gain some ground on them. I think other teams will drop points. Hearts may still drop points. Aberdeen may still drop points. So we've just got to make sure we're on it. Yep. And do what we can. I would love to finish fourth. I really would. But if it's fifth and we get a European tie, so be it. We've had a bit of a poor season all in, to be honest with you. Poor results, home and away. So if we get fifth, it could have been worse, and it probably should have been worse based off what we deserve out of some of the games.
Yeah, you're probably there. Ian Borg was Star Wars anti-royal. I mean, C-3PO could easily be Charles Free. Piss off.
We don't have any talk about that lot on this podcast. This is a Republican podcast.
Yeah.
Take from that what you need to. Right, Dan Taylor. Diego, so do you think he's a stopgap option in the midfield? Surely if the club have any serious ambition, we should be targeting someone better in that area in the summer window. Manager seems to really rate him, but he was a man down on Saturday. Look, we've already spoke about Diego, so what I'm going to do is tie this into a few other questions. We've had a question come in on Instagram about targets for the summer. Sorry, I can't find the username to say who it was from. We've also had second question from Kevin Wilson to talk about what Brian McDermott's priority should be this summer. So maybe let's talk about where Brian McDermott should be looking at and if that holding midfield position is one of them. Who would like to take the floor? Liam,
I'm happy to start. I think holding midfield should be one. I think centre backs are got to be a massive priority this summer. Just the Fish potentially not being here and only really having Hanlon and Bashiri to call upon. So I think we probably need 2 minimum. I think centre forward's going to be a big area for us. Basically a whole new spine. And I actually think we need some wide players as well, like wingers. And to be honest, I wouldn't be ruling out looking in the goalkeeping department as well. So we've got a fucking huge huge shopping list this summer. I was probably borne out by the managers kind of not making very many substitutions during some of the games. And if we've shown one thing over the last year's Hibs, when we need to sign lots of players, we generally do a really, really good job at it, just as we did last summer. So absolutely nothing to worry about.
It's difficult because you think about the summer window, but when you think about new signings, you wouldn't consider Ellie Youan and Will Fish as new signings. You'd think of them as continuations as well, wouldn't you? Like Euan Henderson wasn't a new signing in the summer, but got categorised as that. And I think you can secure the A2 at least for another year. Obviously, Youan ideally permanently, and there's been some reports of that seems to be done or not done, which we do have an option. But like that's always been known, hasn't it? That we've got an option. They would be two great starting points. If you could try and even get them done fairly early. But then for me, yeah, centre midfield, absolutely, and definitely centre backs. I couldn't. Yeah, Liam, unfortunately. Fully agree. Full spine, probably, because it's difficult to see a world where Kevin Nisbet's here at the close of the summer transfer window next year, isn't it?
Just forget it. Just plan without him, I would say. Rumours are there was three championship clubs are upwards from at the weekend. He had a pretty good game other than the glaring miss on 55 minutes. I think he had a pretty good game, so I think they'll have... Not that they would make a decision based on that one game. I think a lot of minds are probably made up about Kevin Nisbet this summer. And I think that it's good for us that there's three clubs interested rather than just one, because hopefully that means it can drive the price up a bit and we get a better deal for him.
Even in that, that's the thing that probably stood out more was his build-up play and stuff before it. You can sort of forgive it. Yeah, Greg, what about you? Is there anyone maybe different or any players that would even spring to mind for you that maybe Brian McDermott should be looking to prioritise? And do not say Mark O'Hara.
Okay. Liam Lindsay then. Look, I think you've pretty much covered it. The squad at the moment isn't good enough for where we want to be. I think goalkeeper is crucial, to be honest. I think we do need a new goalkeeper. At times on Saturday he looked lost and he doesn't come for crosses, and then even for the goal he was just sort of kicking about in no man's land. So I don't know. I mean, I just definitely need a centre half, preferably left footed. I think if we can get Will Fish back on loan, then I would be okay with probably only signing one centre half as long as they were left footed. Put another left back if Chabriah leaves, or unless you think one of the McIntyre brothers is ready to come through. Definitely a striker. Hold a midfielder. I would probably say hold the midfielders number one.
Yeah,
top priority.
Where of all the players that are on loan or out of contract, like McGeady, Kukarevich, Euan, Fish, etc. And if you were to, is there anything that we would absolutely not want back?
Hoppy.
Okay.
Hoppy. Yeah, Hoppy I wouldn't want back. Kukarevich hasn't featured as much as we'd like him to because he is a player. I find it strange that he's not really played much considering he's been fit for the last couple of weeks. So
he was injured at the weekend.
Was he injured again? Well, the previous week,
and he has been injured a lot.
So I would maybe suggest that he's injury prone. But yeah, Hoppy's the one I wouldn't have back. Everybody else, I'd be more than happy for them to come back. I think the immediate priority should be securing Youan permanently. And then I don't think it would happen, but getting Fish back for another year at least would be massive for us. Given how much he's developed in the short period of time that he's been here, I suppose that he's only going to get better, showing a great trajectory in terms of his progression. So him and Hanlon for another year would be fairly solid. And then you've still got Rocky there kind of in the background if needed. So that would be my first move if I was Brian McDermott. However, I am not Brian McDermott. So there we go.
There are a couple of players that haven't been mentioned there. Two that are permanently out of contract. One, they've got different levels of experience with Hibs. Lewis Stevenson and Mikey Devlin. Should the first priority be getting Lewis Stevenson tied down to another year's contract? Or one
should be our priority, definitely. I'm not sure it should be the first, but it should be our priority.
Could there be a scenario where Devlin was signed on a prove yourself to get fit and then he'd be a view to re-sign in the summer, do you think? Or would you expect that he'll just never play for Hibs?
I feel we see the point in unless he features in one of the next 4 games and performs, I feel we see the point in extending a guy who's not been deemed to fit enough to play centre back when we've been short at centre back. Probably it's
Yeah,
probably a no. Probably a no from me, to be honest.
it's just that it's almost trying to find a solution to why we signed them. You know, like, have they signed them with a view to next year? You know, like what? Because I don't.
No, because we've only given him a deal to the end of this season, so it's not. I think it was a purely stopgap. I think for me, if you're going to sign a centre half, you want someone that you can rely on. Obviously, it's a different story when they sign. It might not work out, whatever, but you want someone with a track record of playing week in, week out at a good level, performing well. That's ultimately what you're looking for at this club.
Yeah.
You don't want to be carrying too many players that are injured, because we've had enough of that this season.
Yeah.
And that's probably harmed us over the course of the season as well. It's not the main reason, but it's a contributing factor.
I know it sounds stupid because
can I just say on Will Fish quickly as well?
Yeah, absolutely.
I was listening. I can't remember who it was. Someone was saying about the next stage of this development would be go and play English Championship next season, or go and play a different style of football, different level or whatever from Hibs. I to be honest, I disagree with that. I think the best thing for Will Fish's development would be another year at Hibs, because ultimately he's only really been in the team since late January, early February. And it feels like he's been in the team forever now, because we've had quite a lot of games in that period of time, or what's felt like quite a lot of games. I think that the next stage in his development would be to go and play 40, 45, 50 games next season for Hibs, rather than going to the English Championship, where you might go there and you might have a similar experience to that Hibs, where he sits on the bench for the first 6-7 months, doesn't play. And I think that's a big risk for young players. I think the best thing that young players can do, and this isn't coming from me, it's coming from people who know far more about football than me, but the best thing for young players is to play games of football. And competitive games of football, rather than going and playing the under-23 league in England, which is fucking dross. I'm just saying it now, it's dug meat. I know you love that league, Euan, but it is dug meat. I'm always going to be signing players for there. And an English Championship, which is English Championship's a decent standard, absolutely. But going and playing like CG Egan Riley 2 or 3 games in the first half of the season, don't waste your time.
See, for me, you can't actually dispel playing games of football regardless of whatever level it's at. Ultimately, that's what players need. If we get Europe next season, that could be European football for him to experience as well. As far as I'm aware, he's not had that experience, so it's another level to it. I just don't think English Championship is that great. He'd get much more benefit out of staying for another year, in my opinion.
So, again, probably going to follow up on this again, because I think we're having a good discussion about this. Liam, first, I'll come to you very quick on this one. You're obviously you follow Manchester United as well. If you took your Hibs hat off that entirely as a Manchester United fan, would you still be of the same opinion of what the best place for Will Fish next season would be?
I would. I was playing next to a guy like Paul Hanlon. His experience, I think, is only a good thing. I think they formed a partnership. I think you've got to be respectful of the level that not only the league's at, but the level that Will Fish is at. I think it's very, very unlikely Will Fish ever plays a game for Man United, as good as he's been for Hibs. So I think Man United's job is then to get them the best move for the player, first and foremost, but secondary is to get the financially the best move for Man United as well. And I think by him playing games, there's more chance of value being derived than there is of him going to Middlesbrough on loan next season and playing 7 games.
I'm just thinking, another player that Manchester United, they loaned Diallo to Rangers last year and done nothing in this league, but then has obviously went to Sunderland and ripped it up. Could a club look at that and go, well, he served his time there, so maybe Fish has served his time. Let's test him at a higher level. But obviously Diallo's come in for millions and millions of pounds as well. Like, that could have just been a situation.
Well, Fish has actually done well. Diallo looked miles at his depth up here.
Yeah.
Fish has actually done well. He's looking comfortable. He's playing well. He's scored 3 goals, which, if I'm not mistaken, is more than what Diallo scored for Rangers.
So that's what I would say then, Greg. So would they not then potentially be even more confident when they see Diallo going to a newly promoted team in the Championship?
Mm-hmm.
Would they then go, well, we could send Will Fish to a newly promoted team in the Championship? Or
he'd have to get games. He would have to be guaranteed games, in my opinion. At Sunderland, Diallo would be guaranteed games, but as a centre half, probably not.
And would Will Fish be guaranteed the games at Hibs Easter Road? Would we be comfortable with him as a first choice centre back next season?
absolutely. He is first choice centre half.
Yep. Right now he is. I'm just saying, like going forward, like
I think so on the right hand side. I think at the moment the
Yeah.
pecking order is very much Fish then Bashiri. I
Yeah.
think as a left-footed centre half, if we were to keep Fish, it's a left-footed centre half that we need. I think we're
Yeah.
starting to see the importance in the modern game of having a right-footed and a left-footed centre half in your team pretty consistently. I think most good footballing sides have got that. But I think at the moment the pecking order for me is very much Fish then Bashiri, and that won't change unless something changes.
that's what I mean. So we wouldn't be looking to bring him better than him. Like, would we be happy with a with I was going to say with a Will Fish, with Will Fish? You know what I mean? Like, would we be delighted with that for another year?
Absolutely. His ceiling's above this league, by the way. If he keeps progressing the way he is, it's above this league. But
Aye.
while he's still going through that development phase and learning, then Hibs is perfect for him, to be honest.
Right, we'll very quickly wrap up on the loan players here. I just want a yes or no from. I'm going to ask two questions, yes or no. Well, I'll go around the table first. Would you like CJ Egan Riley to return next season? Greg, yes or no?
No.
Liam?
Yes.
Ryan?
Yes.
Greg, do you think he will?
The only reason I'm saying no is because
No,
he's
no,
not
no.
going to. No, hold on. He's not going to sign permanently for me. So I think it's a difficult one. If he was going to sign permanently, absolutely. But for me, I think
So
it's
do you
difficult.
think Fish might sign permanently?
I don't know. I mean, he's not going anywhere at Man United, is he? Whereas with it, Burnley, it's different for Egan Riley. There is a good chance that he could very well make it in the first team, but Will Fisher's not going to make it Man United's first team. So, yeah, there's a difficult one. As a player, Egan Riley's excellent, but in terms of longevity value, I just think that maybe need to get someone in the door permanently that can play that position or whatever and develop for there.
Liam, Ryan, yes or no? And do you think he'll be back?
No.
No, I don't think it will be.
I felt, I don't know, I might be wrong, but I felt like his stock had sort of fallen with Hibs fans in the last couple of games. I don't know why, but I could be totally wrong, but there was a lot
I'll just say I personally don't think he's been played in his best position at the minute, though. As good as he is at right back, I don't think we get the most or the best out of him. We could be getting more out of him as a player. He's a ball player, whereas at right back, it's one of the more simple positions on the pitch to play. You cover an area, you cut the ball up the line or into midfield. So I think if he was to play the Jago role, he would do that and much more.
Yeah, I thought it was good at weekend. I thought he had a really good game. Right.
However, just to caveat that, Chris Cadden's much better further up the pitch, so
yeah,
it's difficult.
Oh, absolutely.
Getting your best players in their best positions, and
Exactly.
I think we would all be in agreement of saying whether it's his best position or not, he's still a capable right back.
Fantastic.
Absolutely.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Great.
Right, next question. We're going to combine two again. It's going to be Kevin Wilson, half of his first question that he sent in. So, any concerns if we lose Jake Doyle-Hayes for the rest of the season? Thought he was brilliant before he went off. And then what we're going to do as a second part for us is Kirby Nisbet. How do you feel about Jake Doyle-Hayes bucking the trend of colourful boots and going for some traditional black footwear? Greg, we'll come to you first. You'd already mentioned Jake Doyle-Hayes.
Yeah.
Would it be a big loss going through the rest of the season? I think the midfield has been working pretty well recently.
It would be a big loss. He's just so neat and tidy on the ball. I think when he gets up, he's had a run of games now and he just keeps getting better every game. So it would be a huge loss. I don't know what the risk of him being out for the rest of the season is. I really don't know. I mean, I don't know if it's concussion or just a head knock, but I did think that when he went off, we lacked something in that midfield.
Yeah,
so
he was good.
It obviously would be a loss. I don't think Campbell was really up to it the weekend, but Jake Doyle-Hayes was very effective in everything he'd done when he was on the pitch. So it would be a huge loss this season, but hopefully he isn't out for the rest of the season.
Liam, I've been probably more critical than the rest of us around Jake Doyle-Hayes' abilities in the Hibs team, but he's been very impressive since he came back into the starting. Was it against Hearts? He came straight back into 11 after a poorer game against Motherwell, then he got dropped, I think. But he's been impressive over the last few weeks. Even at St Johnstone, I thought he was one of the better players.
He has been. He's been allowed to play in a bit more of what is his actual position, which is the bit that we're not giving Jimmy Jeggo credit for is that ultimately is there to allow the other two to go and play a wee bit further forward. And it is getting more out of Doyle Hayes, and I think it's probably getting a bit more out of Joe Newell as well, who'd been good anyway up until that point. But I think Joe Newell, again, at the weekend was very good. So I think when both your kind of further forward midfield players are playing well, I think that does say something. We will miss him if he's out because, to be honest, Campbell had a great first 2/3 of the season, but when he's come off the bench or he's played of late, he's not quite looked like the Josh Campbell that we saw in the first 2/3 of the season.
I think he just didn't quite look at it the weekend. Like just not to do him a disservice, but all energy at the start of the season, and that wasn't all his game was. But he just looked to not quite have that spark at the weekend. I think he'd missed the previous weekend with illness, so maybe that played a part. But maybe I had to get him on the bench again. But he did look a bit off at Campbell, didn't he?
Yeah, and I think that's to be expected when you have a young player. You're going to get that kind of inconsistencies. As for Doyle Hayes, I think that we're starting to see the benefits of him playing in a position that suits him, which is slightly higher up the park. Great out of possession and very effective on the transition. As Greig says, he's neat and tidy, and we've seen him put a lot of work in before he went off on Saturday. And we did lose a bit of something when he went off, whether that was getting about the ball a bit more or trying to counter-attack more often. He was very effective when he was on the park. Unfortunately, went off. So hope he's not out for the rest of the season.
What about the black boots then, Liam? We were actually briefly talking about football boots on Saturday before the game. So are we a fan of him going with the black?
Huge fan.
What's everyone's go-to boot? I know Greg's been prone in the past to some different colourways, but what have we said? What if we could all? What's everyone's perfect boot? Shall we say?
I'm a Copas guy, to be honest. I don't know.
Copa Mundial.
I'm a Copas guy. I'm a Copas kind of player. Eh?
Yeah, Copa Mundial, absolutely, all black.
The Copa's
Tiempos, mate. Tiempos piss all over.
What are you going to say, Euan?
Any Adidas boot, to be honest. Nike just pisses all over Adidas boots anyway, full stop.
Yeah, I'm with Greig there, but I was always Nike when I was growing up. But
do you know what? A good player could play with Jimmy Grimble's boots and be all right, man.
You strike me as a Puma Kings type of guy as well, Euan. I thought you'd be all over the Puma Kings. Red Puma Kings is a white stripe.
Yeah, my football boots are gathering dust in this cupboard that's just in there. I've actually got fucking silver, sort of whitey silver Adidas I don't know, whatever they are, slip-on ones now. That
fancy.
That cost like £200, but they only they're shite with the stickers on the front. No, like there's basically a sticker on the front of it for the Adidas bit. And when they arrived, one of the fucking stickers had fallen off, so it's fucking Adidas 2 stripe. Oh dear.
Where'd they get that with Nike? Proper quality with Nike.
It was always Nike growing up. My favourite ever boot was the total 90s that had like the black bit in the middle. And they're either white or yellow. My favourite, the yellow ones, I had them for a good few years. I was a big fan of them. Aye. Greg, what TM was it? Was it the purple and green ones?
I currently have the white with the sort of bright red and neon yellow ones. The Majistas are kicked in, to be honest, but they were bright yellow. I'm not sure I'm good at it. I'm not sure I'm good enough to pull them off, but yeah.
Hey, fake it till you make it, my man. That's it. Right, Dylan Morris. What did I didn't notice this at the game, but maybe we'll have a bit of fun with this one. What did Barry Wilkins say to all the bald boys around the pitch after we conceded? I watched him speak to every single one of them individually and motion towards the pitch before continuing to the next one. So we'll have our fun. I've seen someone say that he told them to slow down, putting the balls back in play, but I've seen the opposite as well, saying that the fourth official had told Hibs to get the ball back in play quicker. So
maybe he was just asking them if any of them had seen his bike.
Right. That's what the question coming earlier. That's exactly what I thought.
Maybe he was asking them what cheese they'd recommend on their cheese board before a derby.
What's their favourite pilot beer? The bike one popped straight into my head when I see the question come.
You knew that was coming, eh?
I was like, no, didn't say it so we can have some fun with it first, so I could fucking say it.
Probably telling them his best mate was Daz McGregor.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I actually seen Darren McGregor at half time.
splendid as ever?
Absolutely, but obviously I can't do him justice. That's Barry Wilkins' job to big him up and
Chiseled by the gods.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's it, the ball
But,
stuff though. I didn't mind it. It's a bit of game management. Waste a bit of time. Play the games, man.
I feel like ball
Eh?
boys have become a huge part of tactics now for some reason. Like I don't
Mind it.
understand it.
I can what it is.
Because Lee Johnson asked Ange Postecoglou when the players were not asking him what they're having for breakfast. Lee Johnson asked Ange. That was...
Do you know
ball
my
boys do?
Remind I think it was the Heart and Hand, the Rangers podcast, where the boy went in that rant about the ball boys, and he was called the ball boys wee Fenians so and so's. Aye, that's what they do. They just get these wee Fenians to be the ball boys, man. That's why they're winning the league, because they've got these wee laddies and they're chucking the ball straight into them. Aye, the ball boys is the reason they won the league with 5 games to spare. Aye, mate.
It's weird, but like I seem to. I know Greg said it's a new thing, but I seem to remember Alex McLeish going off his nut that the ball boys gave the ball back to Italy in the game at Hampden for the Euro 2008 qualifiers. And he was going and he says they told the ball boys all game to delay, and then because was it a throw-in that then maybe led to the free kick or something, like Scotland going to set up or something like that. But aye, I seem to remember that. Right, last question. The game from Saturday. Neil Renton. How much did the St Mirren performance of 2 halves sum up our season?
That's it. That's the season in one game.
I'm going to say it's no, because you could argue the second half was professional.
I think we still had a chance in the second half. If we came out and done absolutely nothing in the second half, absolutely, and probably lost the game, then 100% would sum up our season. I don't think we were that bad in the second half. I think we were maybe careless and slack at times, but I don't think we were overly poor.
Do we look at now that obviously that's 7 points out of 9? Just are we looking at the St Johnstone point any different now, or do we think we should be above par?
I'm not looking at any of those games differently. I would say though, the St Johnstone game annoyed me, but the Dundee United and Motherwell games annoyed me more, a lot more, because I think really in winning even just one of those two, but really both of those two games, we would have put ourselves in just a far better place where we weren't chasing. And I think, if Mike Bassett was on the podcast, he'd be talking about it's better to have the points on the board, because that's another football cliche that people love to trot out. But it's actually one of the ones that's true. Like, you would far rather have the points on the board at this stage. But you can go back and look at so many different things throughout the season.
You can go back to any point of the season, but especially when it's in that sort of running, if you like, because even at the time, you win the 2 games. This St Johnstone game doesn't matter, because it matters, but you're the top 6. It matters for a different reason, because the top 6 is sorted, and it feels like a lot of the time this season we've been operating from like behind the 8 ball, doesn't it? And all because of our own ultimately. Right.
I think so. I think we have been. I think we've made it more difficult for ourselves this season than we should have. Even if you think back to the beginning of the season with quite a lot of the late equalisers and late winners, we had more than parity in a lot of those games. So I don't know if I necessarily lay that at the kind of blame at the door of the manager or the players, but I do think this season we've huffed and puffed a lot in games as well. And I think, being honest, if you look back and reflect, I think we've been on the end of a lot of really, really bad decisions this season. I know everyone points to the red cards that went in our favour, but the Dundee United goal, the Melkson non-offside goal against Kelly, the David Marshall getting bundled into the net again against Ross County, or 3 that jumped to mind immediately, which, probably the difference, 7 points straight off the bat.
What you think about it, it's ridiculous. It is. See, something that I find interesting, and this isn't aimed to bring a negative slant or negative end to the podcast. It feels like the first time in a long time we've not had a question about Lee Johnson's future as manager, and personally I think rightly so. Again, Liam, I think we spoke about it. Greg, you were potentially involved in this conversation. Ryan had been drying his jeans off after Lee launched a pint over him at this point. Is it now at this point about almost already building for next year? Lee Johnson is the manager. We want to finish the season as strong as possible and then go in. The director of football's come in, have a positive summer and go again next year. Do you think that's sort of where we're at now and just trying to finish strong?
You want to try and win as many games before the end of the season as possible. You shouldn't be looking at next season at all yet. Absolutely not.
I'm just wondering that one game seems to, because even after the St Johnstone game, there was a good 3 or 4 questions on last week's pod around his future. Or is this
Let's be honest, he's not going anywhere. We've literally recruited someone to help him out. I'm okay with that. If I'm honest, I'm okay that we've done that because ultimately it's for the good of the club.
Yeah.
He's not going anywhere, but we shouldn't be looking towards next season yet. Look towards next season when the season's actually finished.
I do think that our opinions might change if we were to lose the next 4 in a row, and I think having known the split as I do, think about what Heckingbottom, the goodwill he took into the split, what happened after the split. The Knights are out from first game of the League Cup group stages the following season, and probably rightly so because some of those performances under Heckingbottom. I'm not buying into the mate, fucking one of the worst away games I've been to. I'm not buying into the whole thing about Heckingbottom just because he's done a good job at Sheffield United. I don't subscribe to that. It didn't work at Hibs. There's no kind of looking back with Heckingbottom tinted spectacles with that one. I do think you take stock at the end of the season.
It is important, but at that point, I think it's important to finish strongly because you want to finish as high up the league. But absolutely, you look, Motherwell are going to finish 7th, but they're going to go into next season flying because they know they're all going to be behind after a strong finish to the season.
Are they though? Because they're going to lose a lot of their best players as they do every summer.
The
ethos and the feeling.
The atmosphere and stuff is going to be a lot different. Whereas we could in theory still finish 5th but lose the next 4 games. But you're right, it would probably feel like the Heckingbottom summer as opposed to one of building. If it's a big 4 games. Anyway, Ryan, you got any thoughts on that?
Nah, I think I agree with the guys. You've just kind of got to take each game as it comes, cliched as it sounds, and then take it from there, take stock this summer. But I do agree with your sentiment that it's important to finish strong going into the following season.
Yeah. Just finish strong and avoid the stages.
Mate, that's exactly what I was about to say. Like, people are going about Europe, and Europe will be brilliant, and I'm looking forward to hopefully going on a trip in Europe. But the biggest thing for me, the biggest carrot, is not being in the League Cup group stages. It's a massive carrot. I fucking hate that competition. I absolutely hate it. I hate the competition. I hate that stage of it.
Just remember the first year of the pod and Harry's like, it's League Cup, who gives a fuck about the League Cup? And because he stuck with that after the first game, I think was it the year we could go, or was it it was either this?
Nah, it was
we couldn't go.
And he was still adamant at the semi-final. I don't give a fuck.
Say, Dave, we've got bigger fish to fry. No. I do. I think there's value in the tour. It's one of the 2 trophies that you can win, essentially, right? So I think there's value in it. But the League Cup group stages to me is like you need that like a hole in the head because you get no credit for going. Genuinely get 0 credit for going to places like Falkirk and Airdrie and fucking Albion Rovers and winning because fans will be like, we didn't do it enough style.
And we spoke about it in the summer, didn't we? Like, who is it actually more beneficial for, the lower league teams or the Premiership teams? And I don't think we came to a decision because we don't see how it benefits anyone. The lower league teams are having to play games instead of train when they're part-time, and it's a fucking lose-lose scenario for the Premiership clubs like we seen and like St Mirren seen. I don't recall anyone coming out of the League Cup group stages flying and having a good season. You know what I mean?
It's good for Viaplay because we know that they love to screen Scottish football games that don't involve Celtic or Rangers. They love to show a Morton versus Livingston, don't they? They're fucking getting wet at the prospect of that.
Right. Let's wrap this up. Aberdeen away on Saturday. They've obviously just had their first defeat in a long time with a fairly mundane 1-0 defeat at Ibrox. Greig,
should have that penalty though.
No, I would say so. Was it not? Would it not have been a free kick?
No, I think it was a penalty. Like it was verged on assault though. But, it's Rangers, so they obviously can't get penalties against them. But yeah, score prediction for Saturday. Probably bite your hand off for a 0-0, to be honest.
Is that where you're going with 0-0?
I don't think it's going to be 0-0. I
We've
think
en- we've
I don't
endured-
think we're going to win, but I'll say 0-0 at the moment.
We've endured the torturous 0-0 post split up there. Paddy
Tell you
tweeted,
what, Jay McLaren, man,
worst
absolute
fucking
joker,
worst,
absolute joker,
genuinely one of the worst days of my life. Oh, honest to God, one
bad,
of the worst days of my life.
bad. But,
Not just football related, of course, but aye, Liam, we did win there last time we played Aberdeen post split. Christian Doidge scored, secured third place. Well, we'll be getting another 3 points and maybe could kick us on to a potential European spot.
I'm going to say aye. Fuck it. Let's keep the good vibes going. Credit to you, by the way, for predicting Mill Fish to score on last week's podcast, and he got a goal. I'm gonna say 1-0 Hibs, because Aberdeen are really good defensively, but so are we. I think he should have scored on Saturday. It's been overlooked because Fish scored, but I'm going to say 1-0 Paul Hanlon.
See, Vinny ran across the front post. I went goal.
Should have got onto that. He's done so well to get away from his marker. He just brushes his marker off. He done so well, but he should score.
I said goal, but it certainly wasn't Will Fish who I was shouting for. Ryan, score prediction. You're the only one of us that's able to make the journey up north.
Yeah, so I'm going up with, I think, Craig McCurdy and Harry's sister Bex. So I'm going to hope for a 1-0 win. I say it every week, but it's going to be arse-clenching. Quite a late goal. Header, Fish probably. And that wee Fiesta will be bouncing all the way down the road because I'll only be driving.
I'm going to be taking a score prediction of... Do you know, Hibs have done pretty well at the games I think I've missed this year. I think that seems to... Don't know if you know I missed the derby a couple of weeks ago.
Did you?
I'm going to go for 2-0 Hibs. I think we're going to score early and score late. That's what I'm going to go for. 2-0 Hibs. We're all going to be dreaming of third place as we go into the last week or two of the season. Right. Thank you very much for joining us. Might have another episode out this week, probably not. And we'll be back next Monday. Cheers.
Bye.